So we start in 2017. That's as far back as my data goes for optimal and GPP winning lineups. I didn't have a GPP winning lineup in 2017, but your optimal left $1,700 on the table. It used 2 8K golfers, a 9, 2 7s, and a 6. So there's no 10K golfer there, but remember the sweet spot process asks you, or prefers you to start 10K, 9K, 8K, 7, 7, and 6K golfers. So just to repeat that, it's 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. Now, I also have a rule in there that says you can make 2 substitutions. And what that means is, say you didn't like any of the 10K golfers, we'll make 1 substitution down to a 9K. Now, if you have some money on the table and you want to move one of the other price points upwards, you could move an 8K up to a 9. So now you have 3 9Ks, a 7, a 7, and a 6. Or you move a 7 up to an 8, and you would have 2 9s, 2 8s, a 7, and a 6. So there are different ways you can make those combinations. Here, we don't have a 10K golfer, right? So we have a 9K. Now, you could make the argument that you can sub a 10 down to an 8, and that counts as 1 substitution. I don't like doing that. I think that's 2 substitutions. You're subbing a 10 down to a 9, and then a 9 down to an 8. And then that's how we get 2 8K golfers, but then there you go, 2 7s and a 6 make up that optimal lineup. Now you're leaving $1,700 on the table. That's impossible. I don't like that. So I create a realistic optimal. That's usually around like 49.4, never really going lower than 49.2 and above to create a realistic optimal. So that basically included everybody except for Anirban Lahiri. So we actually replaced Anirban Lahiri with another 7K golfer and Kevin Kisner. So what it all looks like is there's a 9, 2 8s, and then 3 7s. So technically that's making 3 substitutions because we're going from a 10 down to an 8. That's, to me, 2 substitutions. And then we're bringing our 6 up to a 7. So that gets you to 49.5. But already kind of putting importance on the 7K range. In 2018, we're also leaving $1,700 on the table. That's not very realistic. And even my realistic, I don't know if that's also that realistic, but we'll get into it. Your optimal was everyone at the top of the leaderboard. It was 5 7K golfers and then a 10K golfer. So again, there's a lot of importance on the 7K range so far. Just throwing that out there. Now, we actually sub out that 10K golfer for an 11K golfer to get a more realistic lineup, but I think we could probably do one better than that. I like to grab everybody inside the top 10 for my 6 golfers. I guess I don't see if we can actually do that. I mean, like 72 to 95, that's way over. So we'd probably have to do something like this. We're using a 10K golfer and Justin Rose, and then you go to an $8,500 Matt Kuchar, and then we have 4 7K golfers. That'd be a more realistic because this uses $49,600 of the salary cap. Remember, it's a $50,000 salary cap. We're leaving $400 on the table, but yeah, that's difficult. But that's probably the closest we can do to make things reasonable, realistic. So anyways, again, 4 7s or 5, however you're looking at it, and a 10K and above golfer. So again, more importance on the 7K range. In 2019, your optimal left $1,500 on the table. So we're seeing a trend of leaving over $1,000 at least, but up to $1,500. It's $1,500 or more so far. Don't do that. That's ridiculous. That's impossible. The reason I don't advocate for that is because when you leave more money on the table, believe it or not, you introduce like many, many, many more different combinations of lineups you can actually build. Because it's bringing up, because your 6 and your 7K golfers have so many golfers in those ranges that you're including more of them into your player pool. I don't advocate for that. That makes building lineups way more challenging, in my opinion. Just stick to a solid structure of not leaving more than $500 on the table, and either starting with a 10K or with a 9K. That should give you a pretty solid basis of when to build, how to build your lineups. But in 2019, our optimal lineup had a 10K golfer, an 8K golfer, another 8K golfer, 7, a 7, and a 6. So basically we subbed 1-8 or 1-9 down to an 8. That's kind of how you can get there with that, or that's how you got there with the optimal. Now your GPP winning lineup, use up all $50,000 of the salary, and it had a 10K golfer in it, a 9K, an 8K, 7, 7, 6. So there you go, your 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. And I also created an optimal that used a 10K golfer, a 9K golfer, an 8, 2 7s, and a 6. All 6 of those golfers were inside the top 10. They don't take down the optimal, but it is the most realistic way of winning a GPP, getting as close to perfect as possible. That's the sweet spot optimal, in my opinion. In 2020, your optimal lineup left a boatload of money on the table. $2,900 to be exact. Don't do that. Again, you're seeing a lot of money on the table for the optimal. I do chase the optimal, don't get me wrong. Not when there's a lot of money left on the table. Just, I'm not doing it. Again, it just opens up way more combinations of lineups you can build. It just makes life that much tougher. So your optimal, though, had a $9,000 golfer in John Rahm, $8,000, another $8,000, 7. Well, hold on, back up. So it's 9, 3 8K golfers, a 7, and a 6. Wow. This is like having your balanced build, but basically dropping one of your other 7 or 8K golfers down for a 6K golfer in Ryan Palmer. That'd be way too hard to do. Obviously, I don't advocate for that. Plus your GPP winning lineup. So, okay, your optimal lineup scored 536 points. Your GPP winning lineup scored 489 points. So there's about 40 points between them, and your GPP winning lineup used up all $50,000 of the salary. John Rahm at $9,000, $8,000 Jason Day, $7,000 Matt Wallace, $6,700 Mackenzie Hughes, $9,200 Xander Schauffele, $9,800 Patrick Cantlay. So that was 3 9Ks. Was it 3 9K? Yeah, it was 3 9Ks. Rahm, 93, Schauffele, 92, and Patrick Cantlay, 98. Then it's $8,000 Jason Day, $7,000 Matt Wallace, and $6,700 Mackenzie Hughes. That's a bit hard to stomach. Now I do have a realistic lineup on here that's leaving $900 on the table. I, in second thought, don't really like that, but that's a 9K, 3 8Ks, a 7. Okay, so 4 8Ks. Wow. 4, yeah, that's almost impossible. Let's see, that one scores 520.5 points. So that beats out the GPP win lineup by about 30 points, and it's 16 points behind the optimal. All right. Maybe I can do something a little bit better. I think I don't want to leave that much money on the table. I would much rather pivot Patrick Reed, who scored 73. Yeah, okay. So I must have done this too quick. Xander scored more points. So I'm going to use Xander. So 92, 83, these guys and that guy. That's 49.9. There we go. Much better. And again, we scored more points than the optimal lineup, or the GPP winning lineup. So how many points did we score? $521.5. So we still beat the GPP win lineup by 30 points, and the optimal is only 15 points higher. And that started with 2 9s, 3 8s, and a 7. That is the most balanced build that I've ever done with like the realistic lineup. So this one used less 7K golfers, but remember, this one was after COVID. So we had 5 weeks of tournaments leading up to it, not a full season event, kind of like, or a full season leading into this event like we do every single year. So it might be, it could be just prices weren't narrowed down and you know, well-rounded or balanced. Could just be an issue with the pricing with DraftKings. I don't know. In 2021, here we have a full season before the tournament. Not like a full season, but you know, a regular season. Your optimal actually left $400 on the table, so this was pretty good. Scored 592 points. Your GPP winning lineup scored 520 points. So there's 70 points between the GPP winning lineup and the optimal. And GPP winning lineup only left $100 on the table. So your optimal started with Colin Morikawa at 10,000, Cantlay at 9,500, Scheffler at 9,000. So that's a 10 and 2 9s. But then we had 2 6s and a 7. That's impossible. That's way too difficult. This is the one where Rahm had COVID, I believe. Yeah, Rahm had to. Rahm scored 93 points, by the way. That would be like 6th place with DraftKings points, and he couldn't play the final round. Excuse me. So this was the tournament that Rahm, quote unquote, won. It's crazy because that's what the GPP winning lineup had, by the way. So it had Cantlay at 95, Scotty at 9, Homa at 75, Willett at 66, Duffner at 62, and then I had Rahm down here at 11,100. He had to withdraw. He was forced to withdraw because he had COVID after Saturday's round. So again, he scored 93 points. That was in your GPP winning lineup. It would be the first time that a withdraw was in a GPP winning lineup. I never any time before or since that we've seen that. But I guess it goes without saying, there was a 10, 2 9s. We didn't have an 8K, remember. We had 2 6s and a 7 in our optimal lineup. And that really is making 2 substitutions. We're making an 8K substitution up to a 9 and a 7K substitution down to a 6. So it still works. In 2022, your optimal left, hey, $1,700 on the table. That seems to be the magic number here because that's 3 tournaments dating back to 2017 where we leave $1,700 on the table to hit the optimal lineup. That used a 7, 7, 8, 9, 8, 6. So just to repeat in a different way, 9, 8, 8, 7, 7, 6. So we kind of see the substitution, right? We have 2 8Ks, so we sub a 10 2 times down to get to an 8K, and then that way we have our 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 part of it, but then we're adding another 8K to it, if that isn't confusing. Now, your GPP winning lineup, okay, so optimal scored 573.5, your GPP winning lineup scored 549, so it's about 24-point difference. Optimal left $1,700 on the table. Your GPP winning lineup left $200 on the table. That one was very well rounded. We had 2 8Ks, make that 4 8Ks, make that 5 8Ks, and a 7K. That's the first time I've ever seen that. I have to mention this to Chad because Chad Eckert from the Fantasy Golf Pod, he likes to pepper the 8K range. We have seen a lot of like non-10K golfers being inside 1, the optimal, 2, the GPP winning lineup. But I do have a realistic optimal here that does use a 10K golfer, 2 8Ks, and 3 7s. So that still follows the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 with 2 substitutions. We are subbing a 9 down to an 8, and then we're subbing a 6 up to a 7. That way we only leave $100 on the table. And oh, by the way, your realistic optimal lineup scored 555 points, 6 points higher than GPP winning lineup, and 18 points behind the optimal lineup. So yeah, still, if you wanted to start with the 10K, and by the way, we'll go over salaries in the bucket system video, or bucket system portion of the preview video. We'll go over how important it is to have a 10K golfer in your lineup, or maybe how unimportant it is. So be on the lookout for that part of this video, or that part of the bucket system videos, going over salaries and seeing if 10K is important or not. So far, looking in the optimal lineup and the GPP winning lineup doesn't really show that 10K golfers are all that important. Lots of balanced builds. I actually might do that this week, believe it or not. I usually follow the sweet spot process, the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, pretty on point. Maybe not so much this week. We'll see though. That's going to cover though the pass optimal in GPP winning lineups.